little short time, so I apologize for the fast talking, but we want to get this rolling to, because we really appreciate your time and we know that you're very busy. I guess we're going to start with an introduction from Tammy Carson.
Hello and welcome. Thank you all for coming. Thanks for being here today. It's my pleasure to introduce our special guest. Dr. Jill Stein was the nominee of the Green Party in the 2012 election, and on June 22nd of this year, during an appearance on Democracy Now!, Dr. Stein formally announced that she would seek the Green Party's 2016 presidential nomination. A little background. In the 1970s, Dr. Stein studied psychology, sociology, and anthropology at Harvard University, and she graduated from Harvard Medical School in 1979. She has also co-authored 2 published reports on health and environment, one called In Harm's Way, Toxic Threats to Child Development, which was published in 2000, and Environmental Threats to Healthy Aging, which was published in 2009. And one of my favorite stories about Dr. Stein is that on October 31st of 2012, she was arrested in Texas for criminal trespass. She was attempting to deliver supplies, food and supplies, to environmental activists, the tar sands blockade, who were living in trees to protest and to block the construction of the Keystone Pipeline. Thank you very much for that. Dr. Stein supports the creation of sustainable infrastructure based in clean, renewable energy and sustainable communities principles in order to improve or avoid a growing convergence of environmental crisis. I want to read a quote from her website. It states, "We need a new way forward that puts people, planet, and peace over profit. For our families, our communities, and our Earth, let's come together to create the better America we know is possible. It's in our hands." And now, Dr. Jill Stein. Thank you.
Well, it's really an honor to be here. I feel like I am, at that community which is really forging the way to the better America that we deserve, that we need, and that we have no choice really but to create. We are in a crisis, I think, as this community knows so well. We're in a crisis of our health. We're in a crisis of our environment. In Texas, we're seeing incredible drought, incredible heat waves. We are seeing storms. I know you've had storms here. We certainly have storms all around the country. We're hearing now about rising sea levels that we can expect within the next 4 or 5 decades. We can expect something like at least 10 foot of sea level rise. This is kind of the new latest data. I don't know, is that familiar to people? Yeah, it's really staggering what's going on now in terms of the climate, and yet you see an oil and gas industry that is just, it knows no limits, and as far as it's concerned, this is boom time, and it's outrageous. It's outrageous for what it means in terms of the climate, but it's outrageous in terms of what it means for our community's health. And I'll come back to that in a second, but we also have an economic crisis right now. And, they tell us we're in a recovery, but for most people it's an emergency. And, so many people now do not have jobs, or they have part-time and temporary jobs. So, we can actually solve both of these crises together. We can solve our economic crisis, and we can solve our climate crisis and our health crisis, and actually our foreign policy crisis, because we are now squandering trillions of dollars a year on these wars for oil that are making us less secure, not more secure. So wouldn't you say we need 100% clean renewable energy right now?
Yeah.
And what Arlington is doing, much like what Denton organized to do, to stand up and say no, and to stand up and defend our future. They pushed back against Denton, as we know, but Arlington is going to be close behind. And we have the progress that was made in Dallas for basically banning fracking within city limits. So it's really important for us not to be bullied and goaded into thinking that we are powerless. We are not powerless. In fact, we are powerful. in the words of Alice Walker, the biggest way people give up power is by not knowing we have it to start with. Well, we actually do have it. We have it because our communities are on the firing lines right now. We're losing our water supply. The water that we have is being polluted. We have earthquakes, as you know, here in Arlington from the fracking. In my home up in Massachusetts, we're fighting the pipelines because these high-pressure pipelines, are bringing similar risks of basically explosion and leaking, and they're going through densely populated urban centers. So, we have this fight that's going on now all over America, up and down the East Coast. You have the fight against the newly constructed LNG terminals where they hope to export this gas. It's not to relieve our energy shortage, it's basically for export where they can charge big prices for it. And as we know, this isn't to bring down energy prices, it's to be able to hike those energy prices. And you may have heard, I think it was the House of Representatives just passed legislation saying, lifting the ban on oil and gas exports. It hasn't passed the Senate yet, but just stay tuned because that may be part of this fight too. So we really are in a fight to defend our futures, defend our water supplies, to defend the safety of our community. We're really in a fight for our workers too, who often don't know, what kinds of risks they are dealing with. In fact, a worker in the oil and gas industry takes their life in their hands every time they go on the job. The risk of dying on the job is actually elevated 700%, and that's just from acute dangers of accidents, explosion, collapse of equipment, driving trucks on the road where they do not have the proper health protection that other truck drivers have. They don't in the fossil fuel industry, and frac drivers don't have those protections, so they work much longer hours. They may be carrying, toxic water, yet, they're driving exhausted and at risk for an accident, putting themselves at risk and others. And that risk of dying, 700% elevated, doesn't even begin to capture the risks of cancer and chronic disease and all that. I'm getting my time signals here. Yes. Where are we? 5. Okay, great. Thank you. So I better talk fast. The point I want to make, really, is that we cannot go forward. We can't go forward into this toxic, poison desert of a future, with climate change, without a water system, with sea levels rising, and the poisoning of our communities. We can't go forward. They want us to think that there is no alternative. Well, in fact, there is an alternative, and it's way better than the present, and that is an economy that puts people, planet, and peace over profit. Now, that's sort of the vision, but the reality is that every dollar that we spend now on a fossil fuel job is creating 3 times as many jobs in clean, renewable energy. So what our campaign in the Green Party is calling for is 100% clean, renewable by 2030. Now, some people say, oh, but we could never do that. You may have heard, or maybe you were around, back when Pearl Harbor was bombed, we had a 0% war economy at that time. We were not producing airplanes, we were not producing bombs and all these other things that unfortunately we haven't stopped producing. It took us all of 6 months to convert to a wartime economy, with 25% of GDP was geared up for wartime production. It took 6 months. So can we do the same thing in 15 years? Of course we can. We need to tell it like it is, that we have an emergency right now. If we don't profoundly change the direction of our economy and our energy system, it's curtains. It's curtains in about 5 decades, according to latest data. And the end game keeps getting closer all the time as the science gets better. So this is not something to be casual about. I'm a medical doctor by training. I say now I'm practicing political medicine because it's the mother of all illnesses. And we've got to fix this one in order to fix what's literally killing us. So in the medical profession, if you are a healthcare provider, your number 1 responsibility is to identify when there's truly an emergency, when there's truly a health threat. And we have that emergency right now. And it's not just to our health and our children's health. This is forever. You know, whether you're looking at the poisoning of our communities, the dangers of explosions, or you're looking at the collapse of the climate and the drought, and you know the poisoning and drying up of our water systems. You know, we're not going forward like this. We know that right now 150 species are dying every day. 150 species. According to the experts, we are now in the 6th major extinction in the history of the planet. Guess what? If you're going to survive a major extinction, you have to be no larger than a squirrel, because the food supply basically disappears when the food chain collapses. So there are all kinds of reasons why we really do need this new direction forward. We need a new way forward based on democracy, justice, human rights, and sustainability. It's not only, you know, it's not only what we have to do because of the climate. It's not only what we have to do because of the economy. It's also what we have to do because of this war, which gets bigger by the day. You may have heard yesterday that, in fact, the president declared, we're doing such a good job in Afghanistan, we're going to keep the troops there, right? Right? We've done such a good job of creating democracy and stability and women's rights in Afghanistan. Few people know that if you follow the crisis back in Afghanistan, it actually begins with intervention of the U.S. that preceded Russia's intervention, that then led to the Mujahideen, and then the Taliban, and then the international jihadist movement, which was actually very much part of a CIA plan to get back at Russia and mobilize religious forces against Russian interference in Afghanistan, which was partly a response to our interference. The point is, you know, this is a vicious cycle. Where did ISIS come from? You know, ISIS was actually the latest extension of this vicious cycle of violence. We have to immediately, you know, institute a weapons embargo to the Middle East. We should engage the Russians and actually take them up on offers that they had previously made to negotiate around Syria, and on nuclear weapons for that matter. Another big problem we need to get a handle on. In order to do this stuff, you know, we have to get off of fossil fuels. We need a plan for peace going forward. We need to get rid of nuclear weapons, and we need to get a handle on the climate crisis. You cannot do any one of those things unless you do them all. But it's actually not hard to do them all. It's not rocket science how we do this. You know, we need honest brokers in Washington who are actually representing the interests of the people, not the fossil fuel companies, not the big banks, and not the war profiteers. That's who you've got representing us in the halls of power right now. So this is about us standing up and asserting our democracy. It's about us standing up and asserting our rights to health, to justice, to a healthy future, voting the bums out because they are in bed with the fossil fuel companies, with the war contractors, and with the big banks. Who is it that is sponsoring the Democratic and the Republican parties? I don't know if you listened to the Democratic debate the other night, but you heard about this much about climate, you know, about that much. And, you know, in the last election, we heard both Democrats and Republicans bragging about how many pipelines they are wrapping around the world, wrapping around our necks, actually, and strangling us. So we have the power, we have the numbers. Bear this in mind. No one is more screwed here than young people who are looking forward to this future of climate disaster. Well, that's not the only thing they're carrying. They're also carrying incredible debt. Basically 2/3 of all young people who are lucky enough to go to college come out in debt, and guess what? The jobs aren't there that they were promised. So they're basically indentured servants for the long haul. And working a fast food job or a retail job is not going to pay back your debt and ultimately your rent. So here's the secret weapon of our campaign, and I encourage you to spread the word. We are the only campaign that will abolish student debt, because we did it for the bankers who got us into this mess. How about we do it for the students who are the victims of it? So, bottom line is, there are 40 million young people out there who are in debt. 40 million is just about enough right there to win a three-way race. What person in debt in their right mind is not going to come out and vote to cancel their debt? So we're getting that word out. We're also getting out the word that we are the one campaign that will call an immediate moratorium on all fossil fuel infrastructure development, no new frack sites, no new wells, and begin to immediately decommission them so that the whole kit and caboodle is done, over and done with, and gone. So the one thing I want to leave you with is that go to our website, jill2016.com. We can't do this alone. Arlington can't do this alone. We're here to help lift up this struggle, because this struggle is the battle that America is fighting, and your courage in going forward to tackle it is just inspirational. I can't tell you how important it is. We've taken so much courage and strength from the example of Denton, and have all, just agonized over the pushback from, with HB, whatever it is, 40. Yeah, but if Arlington is now pushing back too, and then you've got, you have Dallas and so many other communities that are at risk, we can begin to build this, and to build coalitions across the, the chains of pipelines and wells and export terminals. There are plenty of us out here, and when you add that with the urgent need for good jobs and for clean energy and the healthy economy that we could have right now, and this whole deal, which we call a Green New Deal, that solves the emergency of the economy, it solves the emergency of the climate, it improves our health, and it makes wars for oil obsolete. This all pays for itself, and the details of that are up on our website. But basically, it pays for itself in the health benefits, and it pays for itself in the military budget that we can cut back and stop getting ourselves and the rest of the world into so much trouble by, demilitarizing our foreign policy, which right now, we have foreign policy out of the barrel of a gun and out of the bombs of a drone. And that's no way to be conducting foreign policy. So cutting back on our military is actually going to make us much safer, and I'm glad to expand on that if others are concerned about it. But you know that you are not safe right now. This community is not safe, and we are not safe as long as we have fracking on the attack across America, fracking of fossil fuels. So that's what we're going to fix. Don't believe them when they tell you that you are powerless to change it. We are powerful. We are going to change it. The future's in our hands. Thank you so much for leading the way.
We have our fifth panels here. Sorry to introduce myself earlier. My name is Daniel Melendez. I'm with Louisville, Arlington. I'm a Vice President of Pathways UU. And what we're going to do here is give each person 5 minutes to introduce themselves. You don't have to take the full 5 minutes if it doesn't require it. We can use a little more time. And they'll give you the green sign to go. The yellow sign means 1 minute. 1 minute. And then the red sign means please stop, because we have more to cover on this. Oh, that's okay. So the next person will be Gary Stroud, who is with not climate change, system change.
System change, not climate change. And my last name is Stewart. But don't feel bad, because everybody misspells it. But anyway, I'm Gary Stewart.
Yes.
Thank you. And I just got married. My partner was married of 10 years. So it's two weeks this very day. So I'm very excited. I'm a native Texan. I almost feel like I have to apologize. I'm from Houston, as we call it hell on the bayou, and they're using for it. But I've been in Dallas since '97, and I've been really fortunate to get to meet people and my journey to finding out what am I called for? What is my life about? And given my experience from oppression, being a gay person, helped me to connect to the larger vision that no one has to be treated like crap. No one should be treated like non-human. Nobody should be exploited. Nobody should be crushed. And that has always guided me into, led me into being a social worker. I am a social worker. I've worked in mental health social work. I've been a hospice worker. And I see a society that is as inhuman as any society that I've read about in history and even currently. We know the litany. Okay, we know the litany. But for me, a big part of my journey is refusing to be a victim. I have been victimized, but I refuse to be a passive victim. I will not let my life be defined by others to be a victim and to acquiesce in my spiritual rape, emotional rape, financial rape, environmental rape, or political rape. In essence, we all are been victims of all, or at least some of those forms of violence. And it was my involvement locally in environmental movements because it became clear to me that the crux of it all comes back to what? Your mother. Mother Earth. All the other issues are critical. Racism, sexism, militarism, classism, exploitation, on and on. But it's all connected to the root, which is our current economic system, call it capitalism, whatever, and the political systems that exploit it, that do its bidding. And as you know well, our Texas government is completely enthralled, completely controlled by the oil and gas industry, plus any other polluter you would care to name. And the line is long, okay? That is what we're fighting against. For us in Dallas, just let me make sure I got it over, and that I know how much time I have. For us, it was recognizing the Dallas Citizen Council. The big money, monkey mucks, the bankers, the developers, the oil and gas people, the rich white people who have controlled Dallas politics for decades and decades and decades. Well, we were able to stop fracking in Dallas. It took 4 years. 4 years. And we couldn't ban it outright like Denton could. I wish we could have, but the political climate didn't allow that. But we were able to pass regulations that made it unattractive to the oil and gas industry because they weren't going to be making their money. Okay, thank you. Basically, I'm also with System Change, Not Climate Change. We are an eco-socialist coalition for Canada and the United States. I'm the chair of the local chapter for Dallas, Fort Worth, and Denton. Our goal is to be, however it manifests, and we're being open and looking, to be a facilitator of bringing together the different movements to recognize we are in a war. We have a common enemy that manifests specifically in different areas, but it's the same enemy. And we need to work together for a future that's worth living for our children. So we've just been active with Jill Stein since she's been here. Last night we had a fabulous panel discussion in South Dallas in an African American Cultural Center talking about institutional racism, police brutality, and the environmental racism. And we're finding those ties to bring people together, which is what they don't want. But you know what? I don't give a damn what they don't want. Let's give them help.
Thank you, Gary. Our next panelist is Ashley Aiko.
Sheila.
Sorry. And you'll be talking about Denton.
Yes, Denton. Good afternoon, I'm Sheila Aiko. I actually live on it's in my speech here, so let me just get started. I'm here today to speak to you all as a mother, a wife, a daughter, a grandmother, and a truly concerned citizen. I currently reside on the border of the city of Crum and of Denton, Texas, and currently have 8 active frack wells within a mile from my home, and 2 fracked wastewater storage pools, one directly behind my home. Vantage is now drilling 3 new wells on Nail Road in Denton, which turns into my street, Spring Branch Drive in Crum. I also discovered another fracking rig directly behind my home on Wednesday, which would be considered off of Jim Crystal Road in Denton County. No notice was given to us that this was going to be happening for either sides. To further aggravate this situation, a rig has now been erected less than 300 feet from my daughter's high school, my grandchildren's daycare, which has over 100 children enrolled, and an elementary and middle school in the city of Crone. Once again, no notice was given. When Vantage is done drilling, and with the new one I found Wednesday, I will be living within a mile of 15 active frac sites. In July and August of 2014, our water was contaminated during Vantage's fracking process on Nail Road. We were told our water was unsafe and not to drink it. However, we still had to bathe in this disgusting, yellow, smelly, sand-filled water. No one, I repeat, no one should have to bathe in that. We had to purchase bottled water for cooking, drinking, and our dogs. Our aerobic septic pump, which was only 1 year old, also broke due to it being clogged with fracking sand. And as I've met others and spoken to others in the neighborhood, I have met 4 that also had to spend $300+ to repair their pumps as well. In October of 2012 to September of 2014, my son and his family lived with us. My daughter-in-law became pregnant with our 3rd child in 2013, and she experienced severe migraines with nosebleeds. I as well have severe migraines and continue to. I just had one last Friday. Now, keep in mind, during this pregnancy, she was surrounded by these active frac wells, along with the frac wastewater pool directly behind our home. It's literally 3 feet from my fence. The baby was due December 23rd, 2013. On November 14th, 2013, I took her to the obstetrician because of her not feeling well, and she was immediately told to go straight to the emergency room because her blood pressure was so high, they were concerned for hers and the baby's life. I had to take her and drop her off at the ER alone and run to my son's work to return him to her side. Doctors informed us that they needed to take the baby within hours by emergency C-section or we could lose them both. It was touch and go with the baby since he was so premature and they weren't sure his lungs would be developed, and because of his low birth weight. As well as this baby, their 2 small children, ages 3 and 1, were constantly ill while residing here. Severe allergies, severe asthma, breathing treatments round the clock, 24 hours a day, and when the newborn arrived home, the same had to be done for him. We all experienced severe diarrhea during the Nail Road fracking. My oldest daughter refused to bathe at home and would drive to the city to bathe at her best friend's house. We had to drive around the drilling fracking site to avoid getting oil, soot, or whatever it was that's venting from that rig covering our cars. Since my son has moved his family out of here, the children haven't had to have breathing treatments as often and have not had to go to their pediatrician every other week. After HB 40 was signed in May and Vantage began to frack again on Nail Road, my godson Jason was literally ran off the road into the grass by the truckers bringing in fracking supplies to the site on Nail Road. This happened at least 3 times. He reported it to the guardhouse and was told a manager would come to our home to discuss and apologize for this. Never happened. Now I have custody of my disabled granddaughter due to unforeseen circumstances. So now she's exposed to all this as well and has already had a nosebleed recently for no apparent reason. The things that my family is having to endure are ridiculous, and the fact that they are drilling 3 new wells in the same spot that they contaminated our water supply at is just unfathomable. No one should have to live in fear in their own home. No one. Please help us to save our world's children and adults from these harmful chemicals. Please help us to get these fracking rigs away from our homes, schools, businesses, and churches. Frack wells do not belong in neighborhoods.
Regina Benzari from Livermore, Arlington.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's a real honor to be here. I am speaking at this panel, and I see friends in the audience, people who worked on fracking from a long time ago before I got involved, and it's a real honor to be standing in front of you here today. My name is Regina Benzari. I belong to the community group Livermore, Arlington, and we just heard some very passionate speeches about how all our regional, local, and global crises are linked. I just want to speak to the one local crisis that has really consumed this area in the last few years. I want to speak to what's going on with regard to gas drilling in Arlington. I had a slideshow. I'm not sure if we can get to it, but I have one slide here, and I will talk about it in just a minute. Let me give you some background. Arlington is a city of 370,000 people in an area of less than 100 square miles. At present, we have 400 plus gas wells in 56 drill sites, and I have Railroad Commission maps. Could we get to that? It should be the. Yes, this is it. Okay, so this is one of the Railroad Commission maps that shows you all the drill sites. Dr. Stein, can you see it? You see all the laterals coming out from each of these drill sites. There are 56 of them, and we have 400 gas wells. A few months ago, our city projected that this number could grow to more than 900 gas wells in the next few years. Our city is also covered with a maze of gas gathering and transmission pipelines and compressor stations. That slide is further down because it's actually a different slideshow. Let's see if we can, yes. So those are all the gas gathering lines, the transmission lines. I want to point out that none of them carry odorized gas. So when things leak, we don't really have any warning. Then the map that was here, the visual that was here in the beginning with the circles, could we get to that, please? Yes. Yes. I'm sorry, there was a second slideshow there, and we're trying to work with the other one. It should be coming up. Yes. Okay. Thank you. This one shows a map of Arlington with 1 mile circles around each drill site. We picked the 1 mile circles because a few years ago, there was medical research that indicated that the worst harmed lived within a mile of a drill site. If you got out of that circle, you stood a better chance of avoiding the worst health effects. So because of that, we drew these 1 mile circles. They're actually pale blue circles, but they look so deep blue because we are saturated by drilling. Given the intense drilling we have in Arlington and its neighboring cities, we spend time in multiple overlapping circles wherever we happen to be at any time of the day. Our children are constantly exposed to emissions from these sites, whether they're at home, school, in the park, in the playground, at Little League games. We live surrounded by toxic emissions, contaminated water, fracking-induced earthquakes, industrial accidents like the one at the Lake Arlington Baptist Church drill site that we visited earlier today with Dr. Stein. Our city's ordinance requires that gas wells be located 600 feet from homes and schools. This rule is rarely followed, by the way. The mandatory evacuation zone at the Lake Arlington Baptist Church was 660 feet. So I guess we all live in a potential evacuation zone, all 370,000 of us. With drilling expanding, this picture will only get worse in Arlington. At a recent urban drilling forum hosted by our city on August 1st of this year, our fire chief said that gas drilling was here to stay for a period of 30 to 50 years. My son, who is now a teenager, was born in Arlington. He has spent almost his entire life around drill sites, gas wells, fracking, toxic emissions, and the health effects that accompany them. He was a toddler when all of this started, but I hear him talk about college these days. If he escapes this toxic legacy of drilling and gets away from here when he goes to college, the global climate effects of all this drilling and burning of natural gas will still follow him for the rest of his life. This is true for all of Arlington's children and for millions of children elsewhere in the shale fields of America. The climate effects of this drilling are, of course, global. A partnership that included nationwide medical and public health experts and scientists released the 3rd edition of the Compendium of Scientific, Medical, and Media Findings demonstrating risks and harms of fracking earlier this week. The compendium compiles and summarizes hundreds of peer-reviewed studies in important research on fracking. The emerging science, including more than 100 studies that were done just after New York State banned fracking, shows that New York did the right thing by banning fracking within its borders. In Texas, however, with the passage of House Bill 40 this year, the state, okay, I'm going to stop in a minute. I'm not going to talk about HB 40. All I want to conclude with is we need a rapid shift to cleaner, renewable energy to help preserve not just a livable Arlington, but also a livable planet. We need a nationwide moratorium on fracking and an extensive public health assessment of how it has affected populations in places like Arlington. Thank you.
Fifth panelist is Harriet Irby, also livable Arlington.
Harriet Irby, I'm a little different. I brought some show and tell this afternoon. I live in Pantego, and I am a COPD patient. It's bronchiectasis. It is not caused by cigarette smoking. Never smoked, never subjected to secondhand smoking. But nevertheless, my COPD is severe, and it dramatically worsened when the drillers came to town. A little past history. We've talked a lot about gas wells. I want to talk a bit about my set to with a compression station, which is 2,300 feet downwind, actually upwind from my house. So I get, and this is September 3rd, 2011, and frankly, nothing has changed. This is me with one of my favorite chickens out in the backyard, and it says, women are sure something smells at compression stations. Okay, compression stations compress 24/7. They burn glycol, and they have impurities that have to be removed from the gas as well. And they stink. And sometimes they leave valves open. And then the neighborhood really stinks so badly that people in the vicinity get nauseated and throw up. And on this day, I and a neighbor complained about the stench. And the TCEQ finally got there and investigated. The investigator said, well, I went there and I was nauseated at the gates to the station, and they had left the valve open. And the TCEQ said no violations were found during a June 2nd visit. Excuse me. What were they talking about? Has anything changed? No. Okay. You're drilling me. I like to tell people I'm caught in the crossfire because it isn't a question of living next to a pad site. In Arlington, fracked first, fracked hardest. You live next to a compression station. You live next to a pad site. You live next to a nifty collection of gathering lines that are running enormous unpolarized natural gas up to the really big tank and handling. And I live within 3,300 feet of all of that downwind. So what does that mean? Well, that means I go to the hospital at least once a year, rack up some really big medical bills, and also learning about bronchiectasis. You get opportunistic infections, like AIDS patients do, that they can't cure. The latest one that they're accusing me of having, I said, no, doctor, where did this come from? And she said, tap water. Oh, public health problem number 346. What? You can't trust your tap water? Well, mycobacteria are everywhere. You committed a sin, you got COPD, you're just susceptible. Can you cure it? Well, probably not without killing you. Oh, really? Well, maybe we'll quarantine you or something. Well, maybe you better get a court order, is the way I did it. But pollution ramifications are literally unending. As the Unitarians say, we are part of the interconnected web of all existence. That's what it means to be a Unitarian. And I want to know if my tap water is contaminated. I want to know what the answer is, because we're all in this together. And yes, I do have grandchildren. I have already lost a step-grandchild to asthma. His name was Chance. His mother was poorly educated. His father was a common criminal. Chance didn't have any, and that's why they named him Chance. And one night, he was in junior high because he was so bright at age 12. And one night, he had an asthma attack, collapsed and died on his kitchen floor. Chance lived in the wrong nation.
Thank you, guys. As you all can see, and as we probably already know, how important this situation is, and it requires us all pulling together and working together for a common cause, even if it's not the one cause that we love. So now we're going to open the panel for questions and answers. So if you'll please stick to a question. When you ask a question, keep it a sentence long, and keep that question within that sentence, and the panelists will have 2 minutes to reply. And anybody have a question yet? Yes, me.
I don't know if I'll get time cards too, probably so. I promise I'll try not to be too long-winded. Is unfortunately the consequences of fracking in urban neighborhoods has been too well shared today. But I just wanted to share a few details in regards to the well that blew out in Arlington back in April of this year. And I have several details that I'd like to share, because the bottom line is we should have never got to the point where the well blew out. So a few of these details will shed light not on the consequences of fracking, but on the injustices that are occurring in secret without the public ever knowing about it. I guess I should start by introducing myself. That would probably be appropriate. My name is Shazad Nazir. I'm a professor of health and kinesiology at GCC. I'm also the sports director for the college. I teach reading and writing classes in our children's and senior education programs through continuing ed. And I also teach online and dual credit courses for the Arlington ISD Collegiate High School. I'm very blessed, and I absolutely enjoy each and every one of those opportunities. I've literally spent the last half of my life educating young people and trying to help them better themselves. My house, I was working as a special education teacher for the Arlington ISD at the time I had my house built in 2008. I moved in May 1st of 2009. I knew nothing about the gas wells that would later sit less than 50 feet from my neighborhood. And that is when you measure from the brick of the house to the corner of their pad site, less than 50 feet. And just to shed a little bit of light, and the only reason I have these details is because I have spent hours, not hours, but literally months digging through public records, searching through files at City Hall to obtain these documents. But I came across an email, and I wrote down all the quotes because I certainly wouldn't want to misquote one of our wonderful oil and gas execs. But in June, less than a month after they opened the pad site to begin construction.
Who's they?
Vantage Energy. Vantage Energy operates the Lake Arlington Baptist Church site. They had a severe lost circulation problem. So they were going to completely redo the casing on their wells. And as I kept digging, apparently this is very common. It's practically every well. The oil and gas industry wants to do the bare minimum, cut every corner, cut every cost, and so forth. And I'm going to jump forward to the particular well that blew out. In fear of my family's health and safety, I reached out to Vantage. I have a letter from them dated July of 2014, and I will quote from that letter. "We do not anticipate drilling any additional wells in this unit, nor any other activity for the remainder of the calendar year 2014. I have that letter. I had to reach out to them multiple times, make multiple phone calls to get that information. Well, by the end of 2014, there were 10 new wells on the site. And to make it worse, December 28th, which is my little sister's birthday, we were interrupted with emergency crews coming to the site. To this day, you will not find a single document on file with the Texas Railroad Commission, TCUQ, the City of Arlington, anyone about what happened on December 28th. But I have emails that I sent speaking of the leak, and I call it a leak because Jeremiah, who is a subcontractor, there's independent contractors, subcontractors, they make it to where it's impossible to figure out who you need to talk to. But he used the word leak, and so that is the word I use. And for the next 17 days, the City of Arlington extended the work hours so that they could fix whatever problem occurred. January 13th, I will quote, because again, I don't want to misquote anyone. January 13th, this is from Vantage's operations manager on site, Jason Eberl, an email to Colin Gregory, the City of Arlington's gas inspector, the one and only gas inspector for the City of Arlington, because, one man can inspect more than 400 wells, not a problem. We have total control now, but there are a few things we need to finish before we feel comfortable leaving it overnight. Clearly, something was going on the site. January 13th, that same day, I didn't know the email was sent at that time, that very same night I spoke at City Hall directly to the mayor and city council in a very politically correct way. They told me the health and safety of my family wasn't their concern. I listed my house on MLS the very next day and moved my family in February out of the City of Arlington. It was a decision I had to make for my family. I found it very unfortunate to find out that on March 10th, there was a major leak in which 1,600 gallons poured off-site of frac fluid, which was exactly 1 month before the blowout, which sent 650,000 gallons off-site. But after one leak after another, they'll issue citations. Vantages never paid a fine until the blowout. They paid a small fine for the emergency costs. But our emergency workers, our community's families, should have never been put in harm's way. But even after the blowout, they still continue to work on that site, even to this day. They're on site today, working. It's still active. Everyone with responsibility and authority appointed by our government has absolutely failed this community, not just this community, but every community on every level possible. All this information only comes from a few of the people you see up here that have gone well out of their way to help me, and from me spending hours and hours digging through files to gather information, because I hated leaving my house. I mean, that is the American dream, right? To own your own home, and I just feel like I was forced out. I'll leave it at that. I have plenty of other details, and I'll make sure you get my contact information if anyone would like me to share more afterward. But I know we need to go.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Yeah, I too have suffered from that blowout in the Dream City. So if you guys don't have any questions, I'll pose one for the panelists, and anyone who wishes to answer can. What is your opinion of the Halliburton loophole that exempts fracking from our major environmental laws?
Sure. This is outrageous. It defies our basic, our basic laws, the Clean Air Law and the Clean Water Act that, require that there be protection built into our air and our water supply. And it's just inconceivable that we didn't carve out, the servants of the fossil fuel industry, politicians who are on their payroll, basically, getting legalized bribery in the form of campaign contributions, carved out that loophole that exempted them. And it's not only that laws are being violated, these are basically our constitutional rights, our rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And it's outrageous that corporations are allowed to trump our rights to, to health and basic safety. And likewise, I would say that with SB 40, it's outrageous that communities are denied the right to regulate our water supplies and our air. And it makes it really critical. This problem has to be solved politically. That is, this is a matter of power. This is a matter of coming together. And I think it's a matter of sort of the community in Arlington deciding what is the most strategic way for us to build. We can learn an awful lot from Denton and how Denton fought this fight, as well as from Dallas. And the devil is in the details about how you fight this, but it's absolutely unjust and outrageous. And more power to this community for daring to stand up, because your fight is our fight all over the country. And I look forward to telling this story, which is why I'm taking notes, and I hope everyone will send me their personal stories, because I have the opportunity to tell this story and to get into the debates. I should mention we have 2 lawsuits that are trying to open up the debate, so we can really tell it how it is. You can go to our website and sign a petition. This story has to be told, and it is outrageous that things have been set up so that the community is being poisoned by known toxic chemicals to start with. We shouldn't need a study. We know enough right now to stop it.
Okay, unless there's someone who wants to go first.
I just had one quick comment. The very fact that fracking requires exemptions from our major environmental laws is an admission of guilt. It's their way of admitting that they couldn't do it if they were allowed to, if they had to abide by these laws. So that alone tells me that it's unsafe, it's toxic, it should not be permitted. And the other thing, fossil fuels get trillions of dollars of taxpayer money, billions of dollars, sorry, of taxpayer subsidies. They also have this free license to pollute our global commons. So if we priced all of that, if we managed to put a price on all of that, guess what? They wouldn't be profitable. And so we are propping up an industry that under the rules of capitalism could not survive. So why are we doing it, and why are our children paying the price? I'm only here because I know the price our children are going to pay for all of this. And so it's time to stop it. We need to take the subsidies away and all these loopholes away.
The first thing I want to pops into my mind is that Cheney, all the top leadership of Halliburton, and their political cronies should stand trial for crimes against humanity and the planet, and I'm serious. But to get to that point means grassroots organizing. For the Dallas effort to stop the kind of fracking that they wanted to do in Dallas, a lot of basic canvassing had to be done. There was an environmental group that's in Dallas as part of the Texas Campaign for the Environment, and they were tapped to when they do their natural canvassing to raise funds for some of their other campaigns. They became a major tool of getting people to sign letters that were sent to City Hall saying, heck no to fracking. Thousands and thousands of them. So the power of canvassing is incredible. And that became a pool from which we could tell people this event is happening at City Hall. We need you there. There were times we had hundreds of people in City Hall during a city council meeting, and they knew it wasn't some lone tree hugger, some crazy person. There were hundreds of people there saying no.
Thank you, Gary. Sheila, would you like to have anything? No?
I mean, I think they've covered most things, I would say.
Yeah, and it's kind of disheartening. Like Shahzad said, they'll sit there with their plastic face on, smiling while you're suffering.
Yeah.
And even when we forced Arlington to bring, to have the 3 fracking meetings, one of them we had to bring the TCC and the TCEQ down here, and they were saying stuff like, was like, we don't believe that. It's not true. We have studies that show that it is polluting the water. It is causing earthquakes. We have one question back here. David?
One comment on your stuff was your comment about that they're not doing good business. The main reason why the fracking industry became what it is because the Fed reduced interest rates to 0. Now that the Fed's starting to talk about raising it, one of the first victims will be all the fracking companies that are highly leveraged. They'll all go out of business before the end of the year. So the Fed raises interest rates. That's common.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah. 50% are considered to be going out of business by the end of this year. The oil fracking business is already being reduced in their production, 150,000 barrels in August and 130,000 barrels in September. And they figure by the end of the year, the oil fracking business will be down 500,000 barrels a day. Now that's the drop off, and because of all this nice little financial, got a nice report on that. Question, you're talking about 2030. My number says it's got to be sooner. My number says that by 2020, we have to be building 1 gigawatt of electric power, solar power, per week to make up for the failure of the oil and gas industry that's coming. Because in 2020, the numbers are, we hit peak production in natural gas in the United States. That's all this nice little fracking. Those wells all go depleted. And when they deplete, now what I told the EPA is that you better get the money out of them now because you're not going to have the money later to clean them up. So my question is to you on the 2030 number, what are your plans exactly, or even an outline of it, on reaching even 2030? Because I'm thinking more like 2025 myself. Go ahead.
Yeah. Your point about fracking production, or is it oil production that will go?
Fracking oil production right
Fracking
now.
oil will be seriously diminished by 2020.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm citing studies actually that came out of Stanford University by a guy named Mark Jacobson, who's considered very solid. So I think the sooner we do it, the better. And let me say, I think the limit is only political.
That's what he said too.
Yeah.
I read the report.
Yeah.
His numbers though is 2050. I'm glad to hear 2030.
Well, he started off 2030, and then he got a lot of political heat for it, and then he raised his number to 2050. But we're saying, no, we're going to keep it 2030. If we're going to move that number, it's going to get closer. And, so many of these studies on what we can do are based on political assumptions about what you can do with a political system. And we have a political system that says we can only do so much, as political resistance will allow us to do. And our response to that is, if that's what our political leaders are saying, we need new political leaders who can redefine solutions. Because you cannot bargain with the climate, you cannot bargain with the planet. And, I know from my experience in health and in environmental health, these studies have a lot of uncertainty. And it is a public health imperative that uncertainty be approached from the point of view of protecting life on the planet. So we have to look at that uncertainty margin, and we have to err on the safe side of it, because there's no way to know for sure. The number is changing all the time about when these critical impacts are going to happen in terms of heat, water, sea level rise, etc. All we know is that the better we get at doing the studies, the closer those, those points of catastrophe are coming. So, in my view, we have to declare an all-out emergency. Whatever you're doing, stop, drop it. It's all about transitioning our economy right now. Let's move forward as fast as humanly possible. And let's aim for 2020. For God's sake, why not? Let's do whatever we can do.
Yes. I've come to the conclusion after being an activist on these issues is that we cannot trust our politicians unless we have courted them, groomed them, fund for them, and where we hold them accountable. I was involved with the Dallas Green Alliance, where we elected nearly every one of our candidates for city council into the city council for Dallas. And they are all pro-green, pro-environment. And we're just one shy of having a majority on city council. But that meant that we had to look for our candidates, fund them, canvass for them, and then tell them, you do what we say or out. But the thing is not only getting the politicians out, the very system itself is diseased. It was never meant really to be democratic. I mean, look at the Constitution, or that the slaves were not, people were not considered fully human. We've had to redevelop it. But what has to happen is we have to move away from the notion of representative democracy to direct democracy. In other words, wherever we can, at least start locally, county-wise, and hopefully towards state, to where we citizens are the ones who make the decisions. However we develop it with councils or whatever, but representational democracy is fundamentally flawed. When they're away, it's sort of like roaches. If you're not looking, if the light isn't on, they have a field there. So we have to change this notion that a politician, please understand, I'm going to vote for her and I'm going to work for her. But we have to get to the point where politicians will deconstruct the current structure to where it's more direct participation by citizens, where citizens are the ones who are checking the hen house and kicking out the boxes.
Absolutely, thank you, Gary. And just like with Denton, like you said, I heard a lot of people in Denton say that canvassing is what got the word out. Going door to door. We'll take a couple more questions and we really got to go. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question for Gary.
Sure.
Approximately how many people were involved with your Dallas Greens who did all this canvassing and all this fundraising to change the...
Okay. I don't think any, I may be wrong, but I don't think there's a Green Party chapter in Dallas anymore. What was formed was a coalition, was called the Dallas Residents at Risk, kind of named after Downwinders at Risk, which many of you know. And Downwinders at Risk, plus Texas Campaign for the Environment were like the two key leads. But then they brought in neighborhood associations. They were not happy. I mean, the neighborhood associations were not happy about the whole fracking bit. And so there was a collection from different organizations. I represented at that time Move On. At that time I was with Move On, and also System Change on Climate Change. So you had a coalition of people who, all of them were being directly affected by this. And so it was recognizing we have a common enemy, we got to work together. Also, we were lucky to have some politicians who we could trust, like Angela Hunt, who was my city council person. She's gone now, but then replaced by Philip Kingston, Briggs, and Sandy Grayson. And they did the detective work that you did, like Angela Hunt and I think Scott Briggs, were the ones who found the smoking gun that showed that the city controller made a backroom deal with the gas company. So find your allies. Find the other potential victims or victims and work together.
Thank you, Gary. That's all the time we have. We're going to ask one more question of Dr. Stein, and then we'll give each person about 2 minutes to close, and then we'll wrap up with Dr. Connie. As a physician, the public and public health expert, what is your reaction at what you saw today on the tour?
You know, what I saw on the tour and what I've heard here today, it reminds me of why I'm practicing political medicine now. You know, I had a nice career all carved out for myself. You know, I was going to have a nice, convenient, comfortable job. And in so many words, you know, I saw all these people coming into the health clinic with these problems that were related to dirty air and cancer and environmental exposures and the toxic food system that we have and all of its chemical and nutritional poisons that are built into it. And I felt like I was giving people pills and prescriptions and pushing them back out to the things that were making them sick. And I thought, oh, surely if our elected officials know, they will shut down these polluting incinerators and these coal plants and instead, you know, help us create the jobs that will recycle stuff. You know, this is a win-win-win. Jobs, health, climate, you know, and then I spent 15 years kind of running in place and discovering that the system is made to jerk you around, make you feel like you are accomplishing something, and then, you know, and then they'll tweak a bill, you know, just a little bit. They'll change the wording right when they're passing it, and it's enough to pull the total floor out from under it. So, you know, it fills me with outrage to see community after community fighting this battle for our lives, for our health. And I have to say, this is about as bad as I've ever heard it, you know, where people are having asthma attacks, where all kinds of really acute diseases are either being caused or exacerbated right there in front of our eyes. Our kids are bleeding out, you know, before us with their nosebleeds and their neurologic symptoms, and you have these predators in the corporations and in government who are telling us that that's just not true, that everything is fine. You know, trust me, I'm a corporate predator, everything is fine. And, you know, it fills me with inspiration that you are here, that you're fighting this, and that you're doing all the right things to bring the people together who can help advise Arlington how to benefit from that experience and get down to work. And let's fight this battle in Arlington as best as we can, because this is not only for us and our children, this is for not only all of America. This is the fight against corporate exploitation and predation, you know, which is going on all around the world. So let's fight it locally, and, you know, join together in doing that. I think especially bringing together the concern about jobs and the need for jobs and the economic crisis to solve that at the same time. That is an insurance policy so that they cannot pigeonhole you into just being against stuff. You're actually for stuff in a way that will really, you know, just defeat them in the voting booth, out in the street. And I'm very inspired by the work that you're doing and by the experience that you've had. So it's an honor to be here and to be supporting you in this fight.
Thank you, Dr. What was so scary in May is when I ran is like when I heard this entire city council and the mayor say, we didn't know any of this was going to happen. And we're back thinking they studied it, they looked into it.
Yeah.
So this is atrocious, and that's exactly why I ran. I'm sorry, we're all out of time. Hopefully some of the candidates will stay and talk to you after a little while. So you'll start. We've got 2 minutes to close. Okay.
We are already in a war. You are already victims of violence. I'm a firm believer in nonviolent resistance and organizing. But the system has failed us. It's now time for us to say no more. You've lied to us, you've killed us, you've poisoned our children. Why should we trust you? Why should we play your games? We do have to play in the political system to a certain point. We do have to get at least local candidates in who will do our bidding. Do that. Do your canvassing. Reach out. Find other groups. Make it multiracial, multicultural. If it's not against racism, you will not go anywhere. okay? It won't happen. Because they're a huge population, and they're often on the front lines too. We've got to work together. I applaud what you're doing. You are crucial. And don't give up. Just look at your child, look at your grandkids, and say, you know, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it for you. I could not live with myself if I just turn a blind eye. But recognize that this is not just about fracking, and I think a lot of you recognize that. This is about power. Who has power? We have the power, but we have been duped, brainwashed to think we don't. Or that we can trust the powers to be to look after us. They are nothing but sociopaths. And I work with psychiatrists, so I have the right to say that. I do psychosocial assessments with people, and these people are psychopaths, sociopaths. Do not trust them. You are the power, build the movement, and win.
I feel like I've had a chance to say my piece, so I'll just, I'll only say that if I was living here in Arlington, what I would love to see next would be kind of a forum where we bring together Dallas and Denton and get down to the nitty-gritty of how we do this. And the other thing I would love to see is running some candidates for local office that will put the fear of God in them. And, to develop a canvassing effort around that, because, in the words of Frederick Douglass, power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has and it never will. We have to bring that demand into the political arena in order to move things forward. Otherwise, they will just continue to go where the money tells them to go. So,
Here, here.
yes. And I would encourage people, consider running outside of the two parties that are funded by big business, big banks, fossil fuels, and war profiteers. That's why we are building the Green Party.
And on the same note, it's just talking about canvassing is important. That's the whole reason I'm here. I did not know a thing about fracking. I knew I was surrounded by all these active sites and things, but thanks to Frack Free Denton site, they canvassed our neighborhood to give us warning and did the Frack Free Friday protest that I was at every single one. And that's how I became knowledgeable in doing my own research. And then Blackland Prairie Rising, which is also a group, Cindy Spoon runs and Alita, and they also educated me. And so now I run my group for the city of Crum, it's called Frack Free Crum. So that's just important to just keep the word out. I mean, I've been called names, I've been threatened, I've been cussed at, but I don't care. I'm here to protect my children as well as y'all's children. And that's what it's about. It's about their future.
I don't really have much to add to what's already been said. I just want to say that Liverpool Arlington is one of the, I guess, the youngest community groups to enter this arena. And I just want to say a little bit about why we started it. I've lived here for a long time. I was here before the fracking started. And it really took away all my illusions about how our government functioned and who it served, and that there was really nobody looking out for our children. My son was very young when it started. I had some sense that there would be regulation, but not much trust in it, so I refused to lease to a drilling company, and that led to a very long struggle with Chesapeake Energy and our state government that we lost, because that's just how it is. You never win. And I tried to, at that point, retreat back to my old life of, I'm a quiet person. I don't like to be outside much in the public eye. But once you know, it's hard to forget. And so it's really wonderful for us at Livable Arlington, who are the youngest, I think, of the newest group here, to be actually in Fort Worth, sitting right across from Don Young, who started absolutely the first most heroic effort to fight fracking. I'm with Dr. Jill Stein here, and one of the reasons that we started the group was we wanted to be able to network and build the largest possible coalition for change. And so an event like this brings us closer to that, and we feel really good. And thank you all for coming, and thanks to everyone here for supporting this wonderful cause.
Thank you, Dr.
Well, there's darn little to celebrate around these parts these days. But I'm here to celebrate the fact that we have such a wonderful honored guest from Lexington, Massachusetts, I might add. Now, my dad's people come from Drake, Massachusetts. So I know a little bit about that. And Daddy, yes, he played football with Gerald Ford. And yes, my mother voted for Norman Thomas, even though he went to jail a few times. So I was raised in a multi-partisan household. I believe fervently in multi-party nation states in possibilities. I have more problem with nationalism than I do with multi-party. That having been said, I am a loyal person. Those who know me here, and a lot of these folks do know, that I am a member of the Democratic Party, Big D and Small D, and have served on the state committee. Probably I will never change. Have I voted Green? Yes, I have. Have I voted Socialist? Yes, I have. Have I voted Republican? Are you kidding me? Come on, let's be real. Now, my phone call was to my brother out in San Francisco. And yes, he's a member of the Green Party. Yes, he's a church musician. He's married to a lawyer. How are you going to pay your bills in San Francisco if you're not married to a lawyer? You got to be married to a lawyer. I said, don't divorce the woman. You know, you'll have to move out and I'll have nowhere to go for R&R. That's my other hometown. But I celebrate the fact that Dr. Stein is here among us. She is a remarkable woman. My stepmother was also in public health. Her MD was from Johns Hopkins. And Dr. Brigham was easily, well, maybe Ann Richards accepted, but my stepmother was honestly the smartest woman and the most politically astute woman that I have ever known. And when somebody in public health comes to town, that's like my dad is, oh, Green Party, public health. Oh, we got to do this. So thank you very much for being here. I'm delighted that you could come. And I'm delighted all you guys turned out to see this fantastic.
Thank you very much.
In the practice of political medicine, I just want to reply that one of the things that I do, that I think we're all called on to do, is to be political therapists and to help our friends break up with political relationships that are actually abusive political relationships and move on to healthy political relationships and community and a future. So it's important to be able to recognize abusive relationships even when they're political.
Thank you so much.
Don't talk to any MDs around here. They're all Republicans and they're cancer.
Yeah, that's all the time we have now, folks. We're going to close with Connie, but don't forget we have a clipboard where you can sign in if you want to get on our email address list. Connie?
Oh, and just real quick, if you're interested in system change, not climate change, I didn't have time to bring material with me. Just go to our website, just put in system change, not climate change, We have up-to-date news on the environment and politics, the climate talks, etc., and materials that you can use.
Thank you, Gary. Connie?
Thank you.
Connie?
We would like to present you with this, and thank you so much on behalf of rural Arlington. And we are also just very honored for your support of the environment and the concerns for our children's future and their health. And we also want to thank the panelists and the First Jefferson United Unitarian Church for hosting us, and Aaron Renaud for being the Dr. Stein's event organizer. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We have one more thing for you, Dr. Stein. We wanted to present you with a Liverpool Arlington t-shirt. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, everyone. This session is now closed.
Thank you.
Thank you.